President Trump just said the United States needs Greenland and that anything less than total control is unacceptable.
To the latest on the Trump administration and its threats of annexation. Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney says Greenland's sovereignty and future belongs to its citizens.
As NATO, we can provide security for all of NATO, Greenland included.
Breaking developments coming in right now. Canada has just taken a step in the Arctic that permanently changes how much power the United States actually has in the north. For years, the Arctic was treated as a frozen buffer zone, a place managed through quiet understandings, shared patrols, and American leadership that allies rarely questioned. That era just ended. Not with a speech, not with a treaty, but with infrastructure, the kind that does not reverse when presidents change or pressure fades. Canada is no longer preparing to defend the Arctic. Canada is preparing to control it. When Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed Canada's shortlist for the largest submarine procurement in its history, the message was carefully worded but unmistakable. 12 conventionally powered submarines, designed to operate under Arctic ice. Weeks, not days, beneath frozen waters. A patrol reach of 3,500 nautical miles, endurance of 21 days without detection, fully covert, fully sovereign. This is not a symbolic upgrade, this is a structural shift. At the same time, Canada quietly accelerated deployment of over-the-horizon radar systems capable of detecting threats nearly 3,000 kilometers away. These systems do not rely on American hardware. They do not require American authorization. They are not plugged into U.S. command structures. Once operational, Canada will see everything moving toward its Arctic approaches before anyone else, including Washington. This matters because timing matters. These decisions did not happen in a vacuum. They followed Trump's national security doctrine, released late 2025, which openly declared U.S. intent to dominate the Western Hemisphere and reassert control over strategic corridors, including the Northwest Passage. The document made one thing clear. America no longer wanted shared management. It wanted unilateral access. For decades, the Northwest Passage existed in diplomatic ambiguity. Canada treated it as internal waters. The United States treated it as an international strait. The disagreement was managed through compromise, most notably the 1988 Arctic Cooperation Agreement. That agreement required U.S. icebreakers to seek Canadian consent. Trump's strategy effectively erased that understanding. The message to Ottawa was simple. If American security requires Arctic access, American policy will not wait for Canadian approval. Carney understood the implication instantly. He watched Trump speak openly about Greenland. He watched Trump threaten resource control elsewhere. He watched the pattern. Pressure first, sovereignty later. And he drew the only logical conclusion: if Canada does not physically assert presence, law alone will not protect it. So Canada moved fast. The submarine program alone represents between 20 and 60 billion Canadian dollars, depending on final configuration and life cycle costs. Two finalists: Germany's Thyssen Marine Systems, responsible for nearly 70% of NATO's conventional submarine fleet. South Korea's Hanwha Ocean, promising rapid delivery and advanced Arctic capability. Carney personally toured facilities in both countries. This was not delegation. This was ownership. The requirements are precise. Under ice operations for weeks. Extreme endurance. Stealth as a baseline, not an upgrade. Initial delivery potentially by 2032, with full fleet completion by 2043. That timeline is aggressive by global defense standards and intentionally so. Canada cannot afford delay. Its current Victoria-class submarines are aging. Only one remains consistently operational. But submarines are only half the equation. Radar is the force multiplier. Canada is licensing proven over-the-horizon radar technology developed by Australia, a country that faced similar challenges, vast approaches, sparse population, and the need to detect threats long before they arrive. Australia's radar network has operated successfully for decades. Canada is adapting that system to Arctic conditions. 4 radar sites, 2 transmit, 2 receive. Initial capability by 2029. Full coverage early 2030s. Detection of aircraft, cruise missiles, and maritime movement across the entire northern approach. Once active, this radar does not ask permission. It does not request coordination. It simply sees. And critically, it sees first. This changes the strategic balance. Detection equals decision-making power. Whoever detects first decides how information is shared, delayed, or withheld. For the first time, Canada will not rely on U.S. intelligence to understand what is happening in its own territory. Trump's pressure did not intimidate Canada. It unified it. Polling shows nearly 80% of Canadians now believe Arctic sovereignty must be actively enforced, not merely claimed. Historical arguments are no longer enough. Presence matters, infrastructure matters, capability matters. Even provinces traditionally skeptical of defense spending support this shift. Manufacturers see contracts. Labor sees jobs. Strategists see necessity. Carney now has political space to fund $38.6 billion in NORAD modernization, tens of billions in submarines, and billions more in Arctic ports, airfields, fuel depots, communication systems, and satellite coverage. Canada is also procuring polar communication satellites. Existing systems fail above 70 degrees north. Without communications, presence is meaningless. With satellites, submarines, radar, ports, and airfields, Canada creates a closed loop of control, detection, decision, deployment. And none of it depends on Washington. That is the part most people miss. This is not anti-American policy. It is post-dependence policy. The United States can request access. It can request data sharing. It can coordinate. But it no longer dictates. Once this infrastructure exists, it does not disappear. Radar stations operate for decades. Submarines serve 30 to 40 years. Bases become permanent. Training pipelines create institutional knowledge that outlives governments. Future Canadian leaders inherit capability whether they want it or not. This is strategic lock-in. Trump unintentionally made this possible. By making the threat explicit, he removed ambiguity. He eliminated debate. He created urgency. Canada compressed timelines that normally stretch decades into years. Construction begins winter 2026. Operational capability by 2029. That is extraordinary by defense standards. By 2030, Canada will independently detect all northern approaches. By the mid-2030s, it will maintain continuous submarine patrols. By 2040, Canada will possess Arctic surveillance and enforcement capability rivaled only by major powers, and it will operate entirely under Canadian command. The irony is unavoidable. The harder Trump pushed for dominance, the faster allies began building alternatives. Not alliances against the United States, but systems that reduce American leverage. Canada is not challenging Washington. It is making itself immune to pressure. And once that happens, the Arctic is no longer a shared space managed by goodwill. It becomes a controlled environment where Canada decides the rules, the access, and the future. That is what just changed.